Hello, everybody. It's the first of the month, or actually, at the time of recording, it's the second of the month of September 2022, which means it's time to read another Future of the Fortress round. For those of you who haven't seen these before, these are videos where I read through the Future of the Fortress questions and answers panel that Toady1 and Zach do on the Bay 12 forums once a month. If you want to take part in these forum Q&As yourself, you can do that via the link in the description to the forum links itself. However, these have already been asked, so you'll have to get in for next month. And lastly, if you don't like the sound of me reading, I recommend you skip this entire video because that's all that this video is. Let's dive right in. Before we do anything else, we are going to start off with the Bay 12 Games report for the 1st of September 2022. So this is their monthly revenue as well as a few notes. So we're going to start off by reading this piece from Three-Toe. And Zach says, "It's all finally coming together. That which has been gestating can now see the way out. All tasks up until the announcement of release date have been enumerated and are ready to be assigned. The tunnel that once was twisted and narrow has now straightened and shown us light at the end. It is because of your gifts that we have made it this far. We are thankful. The due date is nigh. Congratulations to the generous. Three-Toe." Now on to Tarn's comment, where he says, "Thanks to everybody that has helped out this month. Things are continuing to go well. I did autosaves and ended up restructuring how saves are loaded. Things are grouped by world now, and you can branch off new timelines and regroup them, etc. Lots of new artwork has come in, and we have all of the music tracks playing in the game now. We'll be doing a live demo at PAX at 4 p.m. our time, and you can see the stream at PAX 3. And then below is their monthly revenues. As you can see, there was a really big jump in June. That was back when there was a Kotaku article written about Dwarf Fortress, asking people to throw money at them, alongside of them essentially posting a cry for assistance. And they went from the 9,664 between Patreon and PayPal all the way up to 24,000, which is huge and absolutely wonderful, considering this game runs 2 households in not a particularly cheap part of the world. So shout outs to the entire community for backing up Dwarf Fortress and keeping them funded over the last couple of months towards what literally is starting to feel like the eve of release. But let's dive into the Future of the Fortress posts. The first question comes in from Techiinus, I think is how you say that. I'm probably butchering it, but they say, "I was running a challenge with a no-aging hermit to discover every topic in existence, running a script to tell me how many topics have been discovered based on DF Hack's DF Structures information, and she's skipped out on philosophy, proportional logic, and engineering models and templates, and gone straight to research! Activity. What could have caused that to happen? I had seen research before. When setting all 312, are there more topics to be known?" So Tarn quotes this response from Eric Blank, so I'll start off there and then we'll jump to Tarn's response. And Eric says, "Maybe she just thinks those are boring topics, a personality decision or something, or hasn't gotten there yet, and will return to them later." And Tarn's response is, yeah. If they hadn't gotten into them over a long period of time, maybe those two are buggily inaccessible. I guess we'd know if anybody has ever researched them post-World Gen. The next question comes in from Pad, and they say, "Something that's bugging me a little. Why are the underground crops the ones affected by changing seasons, while the surface crops, the ones exposed to the changing weather and temperature, aren't? Conditions underground are really quite stable, hence the wine cellars and root cellars." And Tarn quotes a response from Patrick Lundell, and they say, "As far as I understand, the underground used to have seasons, with flooding and whatnot. The surface agriculture was added later. I think after underground seasons had been removed, and I think that was done in a bit of a rushed spurt, intended to be returned later for adjustment. Later now, it seems to be intended to happen when agricultural yield becomes dependent on a lot of factors. Something that's not scheduled for any arcs that have some kind of intended timescale. And it seems the bugs that causes this to happen on the surface plants causes it to not work on a lot of surface plants that don't produce seeds, and you can't get will remain until this is as well. That's a weird way to write that. Something that might potentially change things is the myth and magic introduction of more playable races where humans are required for completely mundane worlds, but even that would be a tangential stretch. And Tarn's response is, yeah, as the replies say, this was related to how the 2D version worked. The next question comes in from Button, and they say, how much warning do you plan to give us before the release of the new version? Will there be an official release date scheduled, or will you just drop it on us like the previous releases? And Tarn's response is, there'll have to be some kind of lead time with this one, many more moving pieces than normal, especially for the initial launch. The next question comes in from Kyrianux, and they say, will Premium introduce a solution to Necromancer entropy? The fact that given enough time, the undead take over the world. I believe Tarn previously mentioned vampire hunters of Van Helsing ilk, and possibly grouping together into some kind of organizations. How are the odds for this looking right now? This was stated in an interview with Blind, hello, but not his most recent one, or maybe here, or somewhere in another interview. I know that this is technically an emergent gameplay feature rather than a bug, but it's not one that actually enables any fun gameplay, except for role-playing a zombie apocalypse. And it seems you guys have acknowledged that it is a problem. Thanks for reading. And Tarn's response is, adding whole new features pre-launch is getting tougher, but if it's not handled for Premium, it'll be handled as we get back to the game's core development. We do consider it a pretty serious problem, rather than a feature. Now this one is a kind of complex multi-parter, so I've parsed it out into multiple comments, so I won't be reading the name of the asking person post this first one, but it's all from the same person. I will be stating when I'm reading Tarn's responses, however. So this multi-parter comes from Avalation Brit, and they say, have you ever considered restrictions and segmentations on books and libraries ever? Would you possibly consider it in the future? Such as restricting individual books and or a library on a certain topic like astrology in one library and chronicles in another? And Tarn's response is, I hadn't really thought about it. Except maybe in terms of managing complaints around necromancy books and making a whole fort go sour. It seems like a reasonable and fun thing to do if you have enough books. Their second question is, in regards to religions, would it be possible in the future for a player to found them? Especially in terms of adventure mode. Having an adventurer founding a religious cult, splinter off from an already existing one, or becoming a leadership and making changes to an existing one. And Tarn's response is, we have all the pieces we need here because it happens in World Gen. But as with several things World Gen, it's just not in play yet. Not sure when the next chance for it to come up is. We'd want there to be enough mechanics sitting around for it to be worthwhile, which might not be until the entity rewrite and fort start situations. And the last part of their three-parter. At some point in the future, will coastal erosion be considered as a feature, so over time the map changes and sea level rises, islands shifting together or breaking off, sea volcanoes forming on islands, so that sites might end up becoming lost under the ocean or buried in magma? I know it's a big feature to implement, but has it ever been thought about or considered before? As well as biome changes as the environment changes, like the expansion of desert over time due to desertification, or a forest becoming colder over time due to environmental changes. And Tarn's response is, map change generally is going to be a big part of the Myth and Magic release. I'm not sure if we'll get more natural process at the same time though. We're quite mindful of sea erosion in any case, since houses keep falling into Puget Sound over here. Do they really? That's scary. The next question comes in from Mehmet, and they say, will Myth and Magic arc significantly affect the dynamics of personality? Will there be a personality rewrite? It seems connected to both play modes, the villains and army arcs, as well as my question below. Curious about what Bay 12's thinking on personality. And Tarn's response is, there's quite a bit there now. It does get changed frequently, but it feels like we'll be focusing on other areas that haven't had nearly as much work. Second part of their question is, will creatures, bodies, or behaviors ever change over generations? I read that creatures do inherit both appearance and attributes. Does this produce an evolutionary effect currently? Do cultural customs change over time, or will they? And Tarn's response is, there is not much evolution in there now. The models need to be better individually, and there aren't any changes at the population level at all, if I remember. Customs and things will change, but only after we get the framework written. Of course, the religions that come about during World Gen count towards changing customs currently, and books currently can change the values of a civilization, if I recall. But there should be more. I would like to note, it is possible for dwarves to learn dances from other civilizations, and will start performing them over time. In Long Death specifically, the most popular dances in that faction are all human and elvish dances, not actually the original cultural dwarven ones. Moving on. The last part of their question is a gameplay question. During a conversation in adventure mode, some people have a sluggish attitude towards me. What does that mean? And Tarn's response is, their agitation is -75 or less. -25 or less is inactive. Sluggish is probably a bit harsh or loaded. Now, this is another multi-parter from Crabman, which I'm just going to do as a rapid fire because of the way Tarn answers it. And it's as follows. 1. Will there be an advanced World Gen menu in the initial premium release? 2. What sort of timeline are you thinking for releasing the RAWs for modders to prepare for updating? 3. Last, we've heard about the roadmap plans. You were decided on doing adventure mode later and are unsure about arena mode. What's your position on the Steam Workshop and achievements, which are also in an uncertain place? 4. Will Advanced World Gen menu be in the initial Steam release? 5. Will the layer fog color be changed? Blue makes it look like everything is flooded, at least underground. 6. Might something like a dragon randomizer, i.e. constrained randomness and definable RAWs, so that random things can be made to match archetypes, ever exist in plants and entities and interactions and magic and other things end up controllable? And 7. What's the lore for why necromancers need to breathe despite conquering all the other bodily needs? Eating, drinking, and sleeping? And Tarn's responses, 1 and 4. Yes, that part is done. That's the Advanced World Gen menu. 2, there's a few more things I want to do first, especially as it concerns making small tweaks instead of replacing whole files, but it's pretty much how it's going to be, I think. 3, we're doing all of these, but I gather that it might be after now. Not 100% decided, as I recollect the Steam Workshop ended up being more involved than we thought. 5, the issue was the border between subterranean and above ground looking bad. I think that being kind of annoying to handle. But it's easy to make it all dark if you want to change it. 6, the Dragon Randomizer was supposed to be a prototype for being able to do that with everything. Now with the editors on as close a horizon as the Dragon Randomizer, we'll be able to see what comes first. But we're hoping to get the various middle grounds there. Or we may end up in script land? It's hard to say now. 7, so you can choke them to death, maybe. I don't recall the level of thought that went into this, but we didn't imagine them as totally, completely dead in regards to necromancers. The next question comes in from Buttery Mess, and they say, how does the look menu work now? Is there a quick way of identifying different types of stone to designate for mining without having to use the look menu? I know what everything is at a glance with the ASCIIs, but I'm worried I'll get confused by the artwork when looking for ores and mineral types and so on. How back compatible is the new version going to be with the old keyboard shortcuts? My hands remember which buttons to press even if my brain doesn't. Watching Zach's video fills me with confused terror. And Tarn's response is, yeah, there are colors and also a different wall image for ores and gems, etc. So hopefully you won't run into trouble there. We're still finalizing the ore image to make them even more clear. And he also states that keyboard shortcuts are not finalized yet. It was a weird wording, so I didn't include it in the screenshot. But keyboard shortcuts are coming in some format. The next question comes in from Pamel Rabo, and they say, will you take some kind of rest or holidays when the Steam version is launched? I guess you'll address the most worrying bugs, but after that, I mean. You talk about development in a really casual way, like it's no big deal, but I'm pretty sure that there's been a lot of stressful moments, and a lot more will come with the release. I love the game, but no game is worth its creator's well-being. If it's not too personal, have you ever felt you abused yourself pushing a release or hunting a bug? Is it difficult to handle the community's expectations and constant when questions? Tarn's response is, I don't know about the rest. It hasn't really come up yet, though we have taken the time to mess around with side projects. Not so much since the Steam stuff started, since we're on more of a schedule and other people are involved. It seems like a reasonable thing to do, and I might feel more urgent about it after experience whatever launch is like. I don't feel too put upon, though. As we know, the thing comes out when it comes out, and there's not much changing that. Although we could, certainly, organize things better at times. The community hasn't ever really been bad about this, I think. During the last long wait, things were pretty okay, as I recall. A second question from Pad, and they say, why is the current default tile set non-square? If I remember correctly, there's a square one in the files too. And since Tarn quotes this other response from Zasudra, I will read it first. And they say, when the game was first created, it was meant to have an exceedingly simple graphics. And to that end, they decided to emulate old DOS text displays, thus 16 colors with CP437 characters and the 80 by 25 character minimum size, and the 8 by 12 pixel character font. In 2002, when the game was first released, most people were still using 800 by 600 monitors, with the 1024 by 768 not overtaking until the next year. The square font is 16 pixels, which at 80 characters requires at least 1280 wide monitor. And some people still play DF on older computers or devices with various displays, so the defaults still need to be small enough to fit those. Well, sort of. The tile set is resized to be small enough to fit the current window size, but that can cause blurring or distortion, so that might not have been added by a bludgeon. And Tarn's response is, Zasudra answered this one. A note, the text is still rectangular and premium, but the play tiles are square. And I'm going to add this in. I'm sure we'll be able to change that without much problem. Moving on. Next question comes in from MYK, and they say, I think I remember you saying that Curses mode is going away. Is this true? If so, is it still necessary to support the 80 by 25 screens? What are the new minimum tile dimensions that you are targeting for the UI? In other words, when you design a new menu and screen dialog, what can you assume about how much the screen space you have to work with? And Tarn's response is, the new UI's minimum has a minimum of 116 by 46. This is just to make the menus work, etc. Even at 116 by 46, some things are very scrunched. At some future point, we might be able to bring back the reduced version to get us back to 80 by 25, but it feels very difficult to do so without just bringing back all of the things that are almost universally hated about the Dwarf Fortress interface. Sad face. The next question comes in from Volilol, and they say, will we be able to read the next part of Tales of the Foretold in the foreseeable future? Tarn's response is, Zach has been playtesting. Not sure when he'll have time to write another section. My bad. A quote from Randomizer, and they say, if the release of the game generates enough money, would you be willing to add additional programmers? This could dramatically increase the speed at which you will be able to move through your update and feature timeline. This would also free you up to do more work on the design end of the game, which would benefit everyone. So Tarn quotes Clinodev, who quotes PC Gamer, and then we will jump to Tarn's response. Clinodev quotes PC Gamer from March 26, 2019. He does see money changing a few things, and they might hire someone to help with graphics programming in the future, so he can focus on developing Dwarf Fortress's upcoming features, like the long time coming magic system. And he wants to keep paying the artists to work on the game after the initial release, and if money is, as a concern, really does go away for life, he says, why not release the source code? And Clino comments, so it might be closer to the standard, maybe we'll see! Exclamation point. And Tarn's response is, as ClinoDev says, the replies here have captured the general vibe. And now that the general vibe includes at least some possibilities that aren't all no, I'm not sure if it dramatically would increase the speed on the core stuff, but it does allow us to keep things cleaner, nicer, and broader. Most likely, things I normally can't focus on as easily. The next question comes in from WereDragon, and they say, will Adventure Mode exclusive creatures and items still be graphically ready by the release date? I want to import a fortress that already has Divine Metal once the Steam release happens. Secondly, will saves work seamlessly between Steam and the free version? For instance, if I wanted to port a save from the Steam release to the free release to do something on Adventure Mode and then port it back after I'm done, will that be possible without an issue? Finally, on the topic of Adventure Mode, will we be able to actually customize our character instead of randomizing it? And Tarn's response is, so yeah, old saves aren't compatible, if that was part of the question. Save reconstructuring is the main reason. No mods, raws in the saves. Though it became strained when we made necessary technical changes to trees as well. Oddly enough, it might have been able to survive one of those, but not both. Saves will be able to move between Steam and Classic with no issue. However, Classic will also not have Adventure Mode. Adventure Mode is going to come out for Steam and Classic at the same time. However, the general question here is also complicated because Divine Metals exist in Fort Mode now. I'm not sure what you mean for customization. Like appearance? There's a lot of customization generally. For physical appearance, it was complicated by how many genetics were stored. But if I recollect, we are just going to put a warning that any future Adventure Mode babies we might add would not look like their parent at all if you take advantage of full customization. If we can't get around the wrinkles, but we haven't done any of that yet. The next question comes in from Criprium, and they say, quick question about the soundtracks and more about the Dwarven language. Since some of them contains Dwarven lyrics, does that mean that we have this language for the rest of the development process? I mean, there was a forum topic where some Bay Dweller tried to make Dwarven into an actual language. As far as I remember, he gave up because you said that languages will be proc-gen too. And Tarn quotes Crabman here, so I'll read that post first. And Crabman says, almost certainly not. Worst case, it can always be a throwback to the original Dwarf language from earlier versions, and is possible, likely even, that the low randomness settings may have a hard-coded Dwarven language, much like our current one anyway. And it's not like these soundtracks are in-universe or anything. If the dwarves all die, the soundtrack keeps singing on. And Tarn's response is, yeah, it's possibly as Crabman says. The lower randomness settings would gravitate towards our default setting. For instance, if we go with the plan to include a setting with the editor world, which serves as an example of how formats work, the current in-game language can remain a part of that, even as new complications and randomness are added in. When we get to grammar, etc. It might be complicated to keep all words exactly as they are, but this isn't a huge issue, I think. Another question from Randomizer, and they say, I was wondering, will the new location finder have a way of showing where candy and clowns are to be found? That way, when you embark, you can be sure it is on the game map. There are types of hidden fun stuff that are not always found on the game map. There may even be new hidden fun stuff in the big release. And I would like a way to guarantee it's all on the map I choose. A setting in the init files could be used to switch this feature on and off. I'm aware that you almost guaranteed to have at least a little candy, but presence of hidden fun stuff is rare and reduced to dumb luck. I'm pretty sure, this is me talking, I'm pretty sure it's just a 50% chance that there's stuff under candy, but moving on. And Tarn's response is, yeah, we used to have more types and it would matter, but now a 3x3 embark is all you need. I was correct, jeez. A double parter by Urist McSaddest, and they say, are we going to see adventure mode AI improvements before magic? It would be nice if there was some consequences for killing the king. 2, will we get fort mode mounts? And if so, how would they be implemented? Tarn's responses are, there will be a lot of changes, though I'm not sure exactly which sorts you mean, but villain and army stuff, there are going to be some alterations for sure. And I'm still not entirely on team mounted dwarves here. Not sure it would need to be implemented much different than the war dogs and such, though generally that could be better. And a question from Volilol, and they say, the new tracks are lovely. When are we going to be hearing this music? I had been under the assumption that Dabu's 4 tracks were one for each season, but then where do the rest fit in? Is it like SimCity, where the music advances as your fortress and city grows? Strike the Earth could be the first track going by its name, but then the others don't give me this vibe. And Tarn's response is, it's pretty cool. So in terms of where they play during the game, there are different settings for every track. One depends on the caverns being opened. One plays only after the second year. One plays as a first-year track. Strike the Earth plays when you first embark, and gets mixed in with the others afterward, and so forth. But there's a raw format, so you can change that if you like. A third question from Pat, I think it's the third one, and they say, are kobolds supposed to be able to come up with and build their own musical instruments? I just raised a kobold cave, and there are 2 separate kinds, the Tukudugulugus and the Jada Cyrenucus. Definitely look like kobold names, and they came from one of their caves. And Tarn's response is, yeah, the entity text has them into percussion, which means they make drums. And that brings us to the end of another pretty long Future of the Fortress read-along. If you enjoyed this one, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this on the 2nd of September and it's before 4 p.m. Pacific time, you might want to jump over to the Twitch channel PAX3 because there's going to be a Dwarf Fortress panel happening there. I'm going to be recording it and making some sort of video out of it and potentially uploading the entire video as unlisted to this channel, so maybe I'll link it underneath this video when it's up. Regardless, thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to support my readings and reporting and following and news videos of Dwarf Fortress, you can do that via my Patreon, patreon.com/BLINDIRL, which will also get you into the credits of these videos. And also, if you want to support these videos directly, you can do that either by joining the channel as a YouTube member or via super thanks down in the comments section of this video. Click the little heart with the $ in the middle of it. Lastly, if you want to watch my streams while I play video games, you can do that over at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL, where I play a lot of Dwarf Fortress and other interesting things. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.